Go on.
Menos one long and terrible winter, where ice blackness
Good morning, Devil's Disciples. That was a somber intro by Behemoth, a band that is very much in demand. So I hope you liked it. That was to set the mood for Infernal Realms, Orcus, what lies even beyond those realms, our joint ritual practice. And we'll throw in Morrigan and blood mysteries, and God knows what. We're just here to flow with the currents and with you all. So, good morning, Timothy, Sid, James, Sarubi, Andrew, all of you, and of course, everyone who is listening from the replay, which is way, way many more folks, many of whom choose to stay in the background, in the shadows. Thank you, Timothy. I do feel quite refreshed despite the constant barrage of bad news. And Caroline, welcome among the Devil's Disciples. So, how are you this morning, Frater Chaotos?
Not too bad. Again, bad news and good news make an interesting bedfellows.
Good news and bad news are in yeah, they say that politics makes strange bedfellows, right? That's how the saying goes.
Yep.
And we've gotten fairly political here the last time uh, we were on, so you might check that if you want to hear some black magicians yapping about the state of this world and the current affairs. Um, and we're pretty much open to your questions today as well. Yeah, let's add in a little ambience. I see so many faces here. Some new, unknown. Vat Aizan, hello, seen you around. Yera or Jera, and Gnarly Hotep, who's been featured here. His infernal wisdom about demonic pacts. So I'll throw it to you, I guess, for the start, because you always seem to have some oracular messages. What is it with the good news and the bad news on the spiritual path?
Uh, so the trick with it is we as creatures just walking around the earth, we always like good news because good news supports us, keeps us healthy, keeps us alive. But oftentimes there's always bad news with it, and that's the task of anybody who wants to follow a spiritual path is being able to turn the bad into good. All bad news can be transmuted if you apply yourself correctly, but it's by no means an easy task. Even the greatest master magician will scream an obscenity if his plumbing goes out or something.
Oh, sure, no, hell no, plumbing. Don't even get me started about plumbing. The tree of life versus the tree of death. They both have their paths, and both can teach us valuable lessons. And it does seem like the path of adversity and disaster, the adverse side of the tree. I've seen a funny meme today on Instagram. There was this, the famous meme. It's called the distracted boyfriend, where like the
Mm-hmm.
girlfriend's like, "Oh," and the boyfriend is, "Yeah, check that out." And then there is that third thing, and this particular rendition of that meme was the distracted boyfriend is like a magician, a practitioner, and he's like turning away from the day side of the tree from white magic to, "Hey, black magic, did you check this out?" And the person who posted was like, this is me literally if I don't get results the next day. Like, I start eyeing, all the shortcuts already. Because demonic magic delivers significant results faster. then there's the then there's the small print, then there's the good news that comes with the bad news. And one of my students back in the day, he had this theory. He said it's a package theory, which basically says stuff gets delivered in packages. So when you open the package, there's the stuff that you did order, and there is also always something more on top of it that you didn't order, like samples. Or, maybe there's something else entirely. Like, how they discovered rare species of venomous snakes because the snake was delivered in some crate of bananas,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody found it on another side of the world, and that's how the rare snake was discovered. It was delivered with the package. DN Blackwater says it's really the same tree. Yeah, of course it is. It's all is part of one reality, or one dragon, as some would have it. Same energy that is spun in different ways, not good or bad, just different qualities. Good and bad are really, human categories, and they're not even universal and objective among the humans. Like, somebody's loss is your win. So let me tell you a little tale about the price of magic and good and bad. And this actually happened, and I know exactly the person that it happened to, but I'm not gonna name them. It was a female practitioner of the dark arts who really wanted to get this high-paying government job, which was a managerial position at the labor bureau, like what we call the Bureau for Employment, and they hand out the unemployment checks. It's a fairly important government office where I came from, and she had the qualifications for it. But at the time she was applying, she was literally washing dishes at the cafe. Like, that was her life. So she put all of her magic towards this. There was like a formal audition. She was actually competing with a bunch of people for this coveted position, and so what happened is that they, for some reason, decided to close the whole audition and just like keep the person who was there, on the position, or like move in somebody from their internal sources. And this was weird. This was a weird move. Then a couple of weeks later, this woman who was at the coveted position, she ended up dead from an accident. And this is how the accident happened. So she had a bit of hysteric nature, and she was in some kind of very tumultuous marriage relationship where she would be known by the locals to always stand in the window and threaten the spouse that she's gonna jump. And she would always jump. That, there was this there was this roof on the lower floor. There was some kind of coffee shop that, had the summer garden there with the roof. So this roof always caught her. So like she did the demonstrative suicide in front of everyone in the whole street several times, but nothing ever happened to her because she literally jumped on the other roof. Until this time, the roof broke underneath her weight, and she ended up dead. And my friend who told me this story went from washing the dishes one day to having 20 subordinates in this government office. So when she told me this story, she said, Nora, don't kid yourself that there is such a thing as white magic. Like, we usually think that if you don't seek power over others or to coerce others or to hurt others, that it's white magic. Most people would consider job seeking magic to be white magic. Like nobody gets hurt, like you just want a job. And here's the thing, what if the only way that you can get the job is at the cost of someone else? And she has to live with this forever because it was her magic that added that little pinch on the scale so that, you know, yeah. And you can speculate about divine justice because um, tempting fate by, doing demonstrative suicide to blackmail someone emotionally, it's a bad thing to do.
Well, that's just
You know,
it.
you
It's
cannot
not
count
really.
on being saved by your wits or the spirits every time. So that magic was what turned the situation over. And it was these things are more likely to happen when you ask for something very particular, because that doesn't give the universe a whole lot of leeway. So she asked for that position, but see, it was a fair competition. And in a competition like that, everybody is using something. Everybody's pulling their contacts or their glamour or sex appeal or, whatever they have. They want to win. And a lot of people will use magic and prayer. And so then, you know, when it happens, sometimes you will observe tragic and even violent things, even if the magic that you had used was not black magic at all, even if you avoided influencing other people. There's there's just that. And then there is the great take by Victor Anderson, who is, I believe, the founder of the fairy tradition, which is kind of left hand path. White magic is poetry. Black magic is anything that works. Yeah, I'm gonna drink to that.
See, the trick is your friend did that magic, and as you said, magic kind of works like lightning or the flow of water or really anything in the universe. It follows the path of least resistance.
And you
Magic,
never know what that path is. You
yeah,
just
like the path of least resistance was the woman with her attempted suicide because, to not mince words, she's tempted fate multiple times. In some aspects, she wanted the attention that comes with suicide. Well, she got her wish, and your friend got hers, just in a way that us on the outside would see as tragic.
yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. And this is not a rare type of story, by any means. See, I've had 3 or 4 people die years ago during the course of my seminar. It was a 3 months series of workshops that I had with a group of about I think it was a dozen or maybe 15 people. It took place over the series of 3 weekends, culminating on winter solstice. As the darkness grows, we would delve into darkness, curses, blockages, ancestral curses, and we were seeking to undo all of it, liberate ourselves from it. Uncrossing or hex breaking was the title of that working, which was by far my most favorite seminar. I guess I was kind of exploring black magic from the other side, like, undoing it rather than creating it. Because creating it is pretty easy. Uncreating it is where the That's where the challenge lies. And like, it was pretty powerful. And what ended up happening is that as we went through these blockages, these soul ties, cutting cords, putting up defenses against psychic vampires, exploring the cursed bloodlines, ancestral curses, bloodline curses, um, that conditioning, reversing all of it. Essentially, it's very powerful whenever a group of people shares the same intention. And we were pissed. We were pissed. Like, some of those people were reversing decades of this BS, or even going to confront the enemies, the wrongdoers. So, not surprisingly to me, 3 or 4 people in the close vicinity of the attendees ended up dead during those 3 months. But it wasn't because we were cursing someone or, seeking to remove somebody. Some of these people were kind of unrelated, haven't been in touch for years. It was just the reversal of the energies, because it does seek the fastest path of least resistance. And sometimes some people live at the expense of others. They vampirize them, and then when you reverse it finally, when you cut the cord, when you take the source of the life force from them, they just drop dead because you have cut off the sustenance from them. They have nothing to live for anymore. Or even if, like, say, you remove yourself from the equation, you disrupt the toxic balance in that pattern so much that it all crumbles. And that's then the literal roof crumbling beneath the lady.
Well, yeah, if you remove a leech from your arm, are you preserving yourself or are you depriving the leech? And the answer is both.
That's, yeah, it always goes both sides, Like, it is. Perhaps you could even say that survival itself and thriving will always come at the expense of someone else, I guess. If you take this thought far enough. Andrew says a group can be powerful with their intentions in alignment with each other. Oh, absolutely. And that's why, folks, facing a group is one of the worst things that you can get yourself in. And it does happen to people, especially who become apostates of, covens, lodges, cults. Like, being one against the group, especially if you had substantial links within that group, that's a worthy challenge. That's a worthy challenge. But then when you have a group backing you, like, you have a very good resource right there. But magical groups tend to be pretty volatile. What's your experience?
See, the only group I've ever been in relation to occult and pagan practices was my ADF Grove. And that had low to no drama in it. But I think that's because ADF, the Druidics, they tend to not like to get into drama or squabbling. I say tend to because we know what happened.
The druids were pretty peaceful the way I remember them. It was all just about, like, worship, and a lot of people were just kind of ex-Christians looking for another church to go into, to take their children into. So pagans are kind of peaceful, and they don't seek power. They don't even practice magic a lot of times. They seek rituals of worship, or the all.
I've met a number of dark pagans in my time. They do exist, and they can be very powerful depending on what their preferences and ideology is. But
Oh well, there is pagan warlocks for sure, like Nordic ones, others, but like You know, the thousands of people who will gather at the old pagan sites for Beltane to just drink, they don't really have a clue. They just seek
Yeah, because the thing is,
beauty.
for every spiritual being out there that has ever been worshipped, there's been there's been at least someone asking for something good and someone asking for something bad to happen to someone else.
For sure, for sure. And, you know, it would be interesting to then see it like from above, from the perspective above, like when practitioners are making petitions that basically go against each other. You know, like who's gonna win? Because I have seen many situations where it's like you gotta eat your cake and keep it too. Like the gods, they don't want to lose either of their worshippers, so they will do some kind of Solomonic judgment where both parties will actually feel like they have won, or they will force
Or,
reconciliation, not wanting to destroy either party.
or they'll again go with the side that offers the least resistance to their goals.
Yes, they do have an agenda. Like they are not here to be our Santa Claus.
Although I'm pretty sure there are people out there who worship Santa Claus. I can
Oh,
almost guarantee
absolutely. Well, he's
it.
Odin. You know. He's Odin, and he's Krampus. He's many pagan gods. Timothy Foster says this is why it's so important to combine magic with footwork, removing the blocks that might keep the currents from flowing. This is what they call the paths of manifestation, or the channels of manifestation, which is basically every way that it might really come true in your life. So to take the most, like the most notorious examples, you want riches, you gotta start a hustle. Y- You want a date, you should, leave the house and go out. Even though there's like, the thing is, if you take magic seriously enough, you will realize that it's actually not about doing the footwork a lot of times. Like there's stories of people who have manifested soulmates literally sitting on their ass alone at home in the lockdown, not doing anything, and then the handsome new neighbor rings their bell and asks if they can borrow something. And the two people hit it off, and the woman has literally been sitting on her ass for months, meditating, visualizing, locked up in her house, and the desired man just moved into her freaking house. How comfy is that? So stories
Well,
like
you could
that,
say, or you
they,
could
they
say,
kind of, they kind of beat the crap out of.
well, you could say that that person did the footwork of living there. If they lived 5 doors down, they might not have got anybody.
They did, but it's also not like they put in what we call effort. Like
See, the thing is though, is the effort we put in, we never know when the payoff is gonna come back to us.
no, we know we do it. We do
We
it for
do.
the hell of it. We do it for the sake of it, or for our own. For psychological purposes, I think it's important to do whatever you can so that you know that you did whatever you can. Like, I would always advise people who are unsure about the divorce to go to counseling, like knowing that it will not save the relationship, but it will give them enough ground, enough backing so that they will not feel guilty. Like, they will know that they have done everything that they could to save the relationship. So sometimes you don't do those things necessarily because it would bring you closer to your goal, but you just kind of do it for the hell of it. Like you do the footwork because what else is there to do? If we were to accept that it's all just higher power, then I guess we would feel, in a way, pretty disempowered. And yes, there are many who manifest by will alone. Most magic is actually not done via ritual, occult ritual. Magic can be cast using any one of these three ingredients: imagery, emotion, and intention that is verbalized. So, people pray, people visualize, people meditate, concentrate on things. I'm gonna tell you one more funny story. So, my mother was a big believer in manifestation. Um, she was a kind of a new age Catholic woman, you would say, which was actually not unheard of. Like, it was fairly common for Catholics to engage in all sorts of alternate spiritual practices. And that's because the Catholic Church itself was seen like an island of spiritual freedom in communist Czechoslovakia. So all sorts of odd hippie types were flocking to it, listening to preachers who were forbidden by the state, or even getting baptized to piss off the state and the Communist Party. So my mother was one of these folks, and uh, so she also worked for the government, and she decided to transfer from like a fringe neighborhood to one of the more prestigious neighborhoods in the city to work directly for the city council. So she had to go through this formal audition, and it was a coveted position. So they had other applicants, and the way it was sort of known to work was that if you don't have the right contacts who are putting the chips for you, like you cannot succeed and get in there just by you know your own wits and your own talents. But she believed in manifestation. Somehow she felt emboldened, and she would visualize herself succeeding at this interview. So then when it happened, when she was summoned by the city council, they went through all the questions sort of bored, and then they asked her if she knows the mayor. And she was like, yeah, like the mayor is a great guy, and she related like meeting him at some cocktail party. But what actually happened is that the city council took this to be one of those secret codes that people use to get in, where they will state that they have the protection of this or that powerful person. So they disregarded all the other applicants, assuming that my mother knows the mayor, as in knows the mayor. She literally just ran into him at a cocktail party once. So she got the job because she was assumed to be a part of the clique. And that's how the magic manifested. Will, desire, belief, triangle of attainment. Yeah, I mean, like, her faith was unshakable. Like, she believed that she deserved it, that, like, God is gonna make it happen somehow. And he did. He did. Coven politics can be just as bad as anything you see in political parties or neighborhood disputes. Absolutely. And leeches are good for healing. What's your take on that, Chaotos? Leeches, are they good for healing?
It's for specific illnesses, I'm sure, but again, that comes back to something we view as negative. This leech sucking the blood out of you, if used a certain way, can help you. And that's probably anything you see in life. Anything negative you can see or feel or experience in life, with intent, with probably more than a little bit of stumbling around in the process, can be turned to something positive for you. Sometimes it's extremely difficult to find the path towards making it positive, but that's part of it. Like
And
who grabbed this leech from a river and said, "All right, if I put this here on this, I don't even know what leeches cure, this clot problem on my arm. If I put this leech here, it'll fix it." Whoever thought of that probably sounded insane at the time, but what do you know?
yeah, you know, we all inherited that knowledge, but we don't know the people who came up with it. Like they had it straight from the spirits, I assume. And you never know just how difficult or easy is the task going to be. See, a good example would be like people dropping dead within days or weeks of somebody doing some magic. Like you would assume on one hand that ending a human life is exceedingly difficult because it is like the most violent act that goes against the very structure of nature. But then sometimes it happens so randomly and people die in such bizarre, stupid ways that it's like, wow, it's like, there is some third factor. It's like if the Grim Reaper doesn't want you, he won't take you, no matter how hard you try. And if it's your time to go, then it's just gonna happen. It's just gonna happen so easily as a gust of wind blowing. And when you add magic into it, it just sort of amplifies the most probable, the most natural pattern. But we just don't know what the pattern is. Sometimes you just literally step into the reality that you want to manifest. You just step in there and you are there. And other times, so like I, for example, keep seeing these multiple versions of realities, like new ones being spawned all the time. And then when I step into them, I dwell in them for a while and then they get replaced by some other reality, and it's just so freaking dynamic. Like there has not been a constant in my life, especially this year, especially like the last 8 months. I'm just, holding my head because it's windy. At least that's the proverb where I come from. Hold your heads because the wind is blowing. Meaning, you gotta improvise, you gotta let go of control. All you can do is hold your freaking head from losing it because the wind is blowing. And Andrew has been thinking about this too. Like how hard it is to take life, how many times people are saved, even like from suicide, or when they take all the stupid risks and they just can't seem to die. And then some do in such a random way, in such a random, bizarre way. It's just because there's always a lot in there that you don't know about.
Yeah. Like I used to work in a retirement home, and there's a saying amongst people who work in that kind of job: the ones you like die quickly, the ones you hate will live forever. And
Isn't it true though? Like
true.
the ones who will always blackmail everybody, like, oh, you gotta enjoy me because I won't be here next year, next Christmas. They tend to outlive their own offsprings.
Yeah, like some of them older folk, I swear, just survived out of spite.
Oh, they do, absolutely. Spite is a powerful motive, or vengeance.
Whereas the nice, sweet ones you could take care of years and years without a problem, they kick the bucket like 4 months after you meet them.
What's your interpretation of this phenomenon? So, like, you've been close to death and dying in that profession.
Um, I honestly don't think there's like a grander meaning to it. It's just something like this odd happenstance that people notice that the nice ones die quicker for reasons we don't know, and the mean ones they stick around and they make your job grueling.
Timothy Foster has done this work as well. It's where I've really learned the process of death and the transition of the soul. That's a great remark because it is a process. Definitely, it's not a one-off event. Like death is a process. It happens gradually. It happens gradually, and a lot of times people will start penetrating the veil, like talking to their dead ancestors and then coming back, and they sound like they've gone bonkers, but it's because they have embarked upon this journey, this process of transitioning into the new reality.
Oh yeah. In fact, there's a story I know of. There was an old lady I was taking care of. When she finally went into hospice and started the process of actively dying, her family was committed there would be always someone there, someone awake in case she took her last breath. I swear she just wanted a moment to be alone because for 3 weeks she didn't eat, she didn't drink, she didn't relieve herself. She lasted 3 weeks, and finally, the one time the person that was there actually nodded off and slept, that's when she passed. Um,
Very interesting.
so I also think it's the case we have to be open to how the process happens forever it's happening to. Like, we think, like the family did, like, oh, we should be there, we should be like, we should watch them die, when the woman just wanted the dignity of dying while she was alone.
Yeah, sure. No, I mean, it's like childbirth. Like people assume that the woman wants to be accompanied by her husband, but like, what if she wants privacy most of all? Like they literally found out that it works better when you leave the woman privately in a dark room. And there is so many. Oh my god, there is like so many similarities and references, come to think of it, between childbirth and dying. I'm not the first one to draw this parallel. But we haven't touched upon the blood mysteries yet, and Orcus, and
We've been
so
busy
yeah,
doing
we need to deliver on the promise. So Morrigan came to me recently, kind of pleased with my deeds, and the thing that she was pleased with was I made a post, I wrote an essay, sort of in defense of free speech. It was about censorship of the internet, in particular, something that you might find funny, ludicrous. So, OnlyFans, the famous slash infamous platform used mostly for adult entertainment, they actually censor the F out of the creators there, which is funny, right? Like you would not expect that. There's a whole list of forbidden words that you cannot use. Like literally, when you try to type in those words, it won't go through. One of those words is blood. So like let's say that like you're being flirty with the customer, and like you want to say, oh, like you make my blood boil with passion. You can't say it because you just hit the wrong mark. You just hit the list of the forbidden words. Another word that I randomly found out was young, so yeah, I can't say that I look young or that I am young. Another one that I found out was unconscious. Like, of course, when you put it together, like young, blood, unconscious, you start seeing some kind of
Yeah,
sinister and the
there's
story unfolding, right? But that's not what I was looking at. I was just looking to write some enticing captions for my photography erotica, because you need to put in a bit of a story, like you need to put in a bit of a story in it. And that's how I started discovering these forbidden words. And it's not about the words, even all the visual contents go through filters as well. And as many models have discovered, even like the fairly innocent cosplayers, like the girls who just do cosplay, one of them did the great photo shoot with like a Halloween vampire theme. So, she's like in a bikini, blood dripping all over her, she's gonna suck you dry. It's just freaking innocent cosplay. He wasn't even pornographic in nature. It was banned. Gone. Gone because she used the fake movie maker's blood. And like, none of that was obviously shot in a way that would like intend to make it realistic, like it was an actual promotion of violence or gore or suicide, murder, any of it. It was a freaking hot young model in a bikini being a sexy vampire. Stuff like that gets shut down because of censorship. Other stuff that gets shut down is all the other body fluids, because you can come all you want, but you can't show blood, you can't show breast milk, you can't show urine. Like, you want to be a sexy nurse who is, doing a medical examination, can't do that. Can't do that. And it kind of got my blood boiling, because I'm like, you know, like, what is this world? Like, what is this ludicrous fake world that, on the other hand, wants to make you believe that, like, interracial, incestuous gangbangs are normal sex life? That people actually do these things, like, on a regular basis? So people become desensitized to a lot of things. A lot of it is actually, like, quite degrading to the women. But at the same time, like, we are supposed to believe that we don't have bodies that produce body fluids. Like, you can't be a sexy vampire or a nurse. So I got pretty pissed about this, and I posted a picture of an older photo shoot where we were using the fake blood, like I was bathing in blood. Like, I was like Countess Bathory, bathing in the blood of virgins. Obviously not trying to entice violence, just expressing myself. And Morrigan came to me that night and she said that she appreciates it that I stood up for the blood mysteries. And I know that you have done a lot of work with the blood mysteries as well.
In fact, one part of my invocation to the Morrigan is she is the Lady of Blood and Bone and Blade.
And blade. Blood, bone, and blade. Wow.
Because she to me she's a goddess of many things, but one of the big things she is fatalistic fight or flight. That's just her, and part of that is the frenzy to fight, to shed blood, to be bleeding, to carry the bones of that which you have killed, that kind of stuff. It's just that kind, how you're talking with the censorship of blood and young and unconscious and all that. It gets down to two problems we're having today that nobody really wants to talk about. First, is Western society for hundreds of years was ruled by this very puritanical, almost Cathar-like viewpoint of, this and that and everything the body likes is bad and evil and blah, 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 blah. So we had that for the longest time. And now what we're experiencing is people going just as bad in the opposite direction. It's just that now there's more people on the earth, so there's more of a push that way. So it's like this weird sort of binary flux we are in, but the midpoint between those two is the healthy one. But the problem is we can't live in that healthy zone because it's just like two magnets on either side. Either you're very puritanical, which apparently is the direction a lot of these companies, a lot of these AIs are pushing toward, very the opposite direction.
Yeah, and it is creating this strange fork. Like, all the social media, all the internet is like heavily censored, and yet it is full of the most criminal things, that you can think of. I agree with Timothy. Naked body is not anything shameful. And you know what? Like, I was actually lucky to run into people early on who told me this. So when I was about 9, 10 years old at the Catholic school, uh, we had a swimming pool. And we had monthly or weekly swimming lessons, which were compulsory. And a big part of that was, of course, like we had to change into the bathing suits, and like they would not allow us to keep the bathing suits on, which we would have kind of preferred for reasons of shame. They forced us to like really take it off, really shower, and then just dry with the towels, because you can get all sorts of unsavory infections if you keep the swimsuits on. So we would have to pass from the showers to the locker rooms, which were not adjacent to the showers, because the whole building was old, and the swimming pool was sort of added later on, so it was not
Mhm.
constructed in the most reasonable way. And whenever we were passing from the showers covered in towels to the cloakrooms, imagine what all the boys would do. Like, they would try to tear off the towels from us. So we were literally running this distance.
Mhm.
Sure, you can picture, like these kinds of games that people play.
Yeah.
And, like, of course, like for me at 9 years old, like this was fairly traumatizing. Like imagine a bunch of prepubescent boys, waiting for the girls to emerge out of the shower to tear down the towels from them. And sometimes they succeeded, and one time some girl like really started screaming and making a mess, and the swimming instructor came, and he looked at the situation, recognizing right away what's going on, and he had all of us summoned, which felt pretty sinister. Like everybody was expecting to be punished, like even us girls, like we were expecting to be punished in some way because this was like bad. Everybody was summoned. But what happened, and like I remember it to this day, is that he gave us this speech explaining that there is nothing shameful about the human body. So he told the girls, you have nothing to be embarrassed about, and you boys, like, there is nothing spicy, nothing embarrassing for you to see. So, like, you both stop doing this. Basically, that's what he said.
Well, yeah. This reminds me of a story. Heard this sort of third, fourth hand. There was this movie that Christina Ricci was in at some point. She was like chained in a cabin or something, and the scene has it where she's just in like underwear and a t-shirt most of the movie. And the film crew would say, like, well, we're guys. For the first hour, we're like, ooh. But after that, it sort of like went away because it's kind of hard to sexualize someone when they're just, in that getup, but they're just sitting in a chair eating lunch talking to you. And that's the thing. It's like when you're exposed to nudity enough, you desensitize to it to the point where it's just, you know, less clothes.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, it is very strange how these things work because like, I get hit on all the time, like with the strangest request. Somehow somebody wanted a naked tarot reading, which I declined, and I posted my train of thought around it because I thought that was an interesting thing to address because like I do take nude pictures and I do psychic work, but I would never mix up the two. And I gave my reasons why, and I got a wide approval for this because everybody kind of felt the same. Like, there's entertainment, and then there is sacred spiritual work, and unless it is like tantric work, there is no freaking reason why you would need the psychic reader to be naked, right? Like, you're doing this to entice yourself, and it dilutes the message. It's just a pretense. It's just a pretense for something uh, like exotic. It's like role play, but of the wrong kind. And then people said, like, if all of us were living in a naturist commune like they do, in Florida or in Arizona, and everybody was naked, then I would have no problem doing any kind of spiritual work naked because that's like just the normal, the natural state for us. But when it is seen as something forbidden, something spicy, something shameful, like, then you're drawing it in for the wrong reasons. And like,
But
I would have to desexualize myself entirely if I were to actually do it. Like, I would have to get into the mindset that, like, I am not naked, which would then kill the thrill, I guess. So, human sexuality is very dependent on um, it's very dependent on context. It's all about imagination.
yeah, that does kind of go back to that puritanical mindset in that that person that asks you to do naked, he's still subscribing to that puritanical mindset that the pleasures of the body are forbidden. He's just going the opposite direction with it. Ooh, this is forbidden, but also mystical occult work is also forbidden. Let's just
He
mix them
just
both.
wants he just wants the more forbidden, But the
Yeah,
thing is, like, anything that you put out there that is recordable or recorded, it's out there forever. And like, if I ever want to be taken seriously as a priestess, I can't have some video out there where I'm doing a naked tarot reading that, the whole Reddit will then laugh about it for years, and they're gonna make memes out of it.
and part of that too is there are people who can do that. It gets out there and they just own it, and it just becomes part of their persona. But while people can do that, that's not something everybody can or should try to do. There are just some things that you should block off, even if not everybody would do that.
So that's the part about Morrigan and the blood mysteries that came up randomly in my life. And then there is Orcus and Hell, which was a ritual that Frater Chaotos here actually introduced me to. He sent it to me as a recording, and I did it on the August full moon here in Las Vegas when we had the torrential rains and the lightnings were just like striking the ground, burning freaking trees. And I was very impressed by the power of this. So who is Orcus? He, because it's a being, but it's also a realm.
So the scholarly side of it is Orcus was a god of the underworld before, in Rome, before they sort of, took over the Greek side and Hades became Pluto or whatever. But basically, Orcus was in charge of Tartarus, which is specifically the torture aspect of the afterlife. It's where we get the common conceptions of hell. That's the scholarly aspect of it. How I experience it is he sees over a realm where if you die and you are just so incredibly burdened with guilt and regret and shame, you go there. But it's not like someone sends you there. You send yourself there. He even told me, no one in my realm is here against their will. They can walk out any time, but they've just become comfortable in their chains. And that's how people experience the realm. It's sort of like this fiery, kind of lava ish place under the earth. People experience it as if they're chained to these huge boulders. These chains are your guilt, shame, and regret. But at any time, you can break those chains and walk free. But as he said, some people choose to wear their chains as jewelry just because they're comfortable. Uh, and the ritual that um, I helped you with is something I went through. That's something I experienced intuitively during my Black October was that breaking of chains of guilt and shame. Because the other aspect of him, he has a golden chain in one hand and a golden sword in the other. At any time, he can bring his sword to bear to break your chains, but only if you're willing to have them broken. If you go to him saying, also, I want to be free of this, but you don't really want to be free of it, he isn't going to bother. He's going to be like, no, you are chained. Deal with it. You have to be truly willing to let go of these chains that you are so used to, willing to move forward.
And the crazy thing is, I was invited days later after this ritual for a photo shoot where the photographer insisted on bringing these props, these fat ass chains to the wall, and like for me to chain myself to it or like to have it next to me. So like that was eerie, absolutely eerie. When things that you experience in rituals or in vision, when they become embodied physically, like to the point that it's brought to your attention in a way that you really cannot ignore. You really cannot ignore. Like I was brought to Orcus, essentially, like this desolate hell realm. These burned down trees where there's like nothing in there, like some, like after an explosion of some ancient weapon. And there awaited me the tools of the trade, the magic implements, and the chains. Interestingly. And like he never explained it. I guess he wouldn't be able to say anything. Like to him, it was like, yeah, we're doing Halloween style. It's just props. But I don't really believe in props. Like like the chalices and daggers and candles that I have there are props as well, of a different kind. And art is magic. It is a form
Well, it
of.
could also have been subtler magics, just sort of tweaking his view of how he wanted the shoot to go, like something hinting like chains. Chains are very Halloween. He's like, yeah, chains are Halloween. I'm gonna grab those.
So I took some selfies. And it's also significant that I'm wearing the cross, which is like the symbol of self-inflicted suffering or like duty. That which binds us to the earthly realm. And there was a blackened heart that somebody had drawn the charcoal on the burnt tree. So I took that as a big sign of like healing and reconciliation. It's like a double heart drawn in black charcoal. Like what a what. So the chains of Orcus are real. I did see myself. I actually do see myself with like chains or binds on my hands, and they usually represent either guilt or like oath loyalties, and we do it to ourselves. Like we do it to ourselves.
Yeah, as Orcus said, no one is in my realm against their will. They are here of their own accord and they can leave at any time. They got to go through that process of letting go of chains, and shockingly, many people don't. In fact, Orcus even said, "It's a pity that so many come to my realm who are innocent, harmless, but they're pushed here by systems of belief that even them existing is somehow a guilt-ridden thing."
And like you can't really blame them, because like one of the main Christian doctrines that I was raised with is actually original sin, meaning you are born flawed, you are born sinful. It's passed on to you like through the bloodline. The humanity as a whole is flawed, basically. Like that's pretty fucked up, like to be raised with that kind of belief. And
Oh
that's
yeah,
a Western Christian belief that is by no means shared universally.
yeah, because my views on original sin, I hate the idea, first of all, because A, you can blatantly see the, inbound need for conversion in it. Oh, well, you're going to this place of torment unless you bow to the church I bow to and do as I do. Now convert. That's the part of it I hate. The other part is that original sin, if you look at it, original sin doesn't affect any modern human because technically Jesus died for sins, including original sin when he died. So according to your own theology, any human born after Jesus died is no longer subject to original sin.
Yeah,
So what
but
is
theology bears little resemblance and little relevance to the lives of people. It's just kind of what theologians speculate about, and most people won't even understand. Most people are illiterate, like, they could just interpret the pictures that they saw on the church walls, and those pictures were often ones of like gruesome hell. I have seen those medieval frescoes. Yeah, I agree, Andrew. It's good that you say that. Like, don't see yourself as a victim. Do see your own vices. Maybe you are drawn to knowledge like moth to the flame. You are compelled by certain passions and desires. So stand for who you are. Accept yourself the way you are. I know that, like, I like adventure. That's my weakness. Um, I think all Luciferians have some form of lust that sort of, like yeah, it gets to us, and then it gets us on certain life path, and it's because of who we are and how we are. Bad Cooper. If a right hand path practitioners from the god, for example, leaves it for Luciferian path, should they expect any complications due to the oaths that were taken? Do you know anyone who has worked right hand path and switched? I actually more commonly run into people going the opposite direction. People who have some kind of problematic heritage, like from occult stuff that they've done when they were young and foolish, or they carry something from past lives or like from their ancestral bloodline, and it is causing them trouble, and they need a way to make it conscious and take a stand and renounce it because black magic is not their path. So I've been actually helping people get away from the left hand path and from black magic. And it is totally doable, and it's the best thing to do when they really just dip their finger into the pot once, or if it's like a long time ago. If it's not natural to them, then I need to find a way how to help them get away from it. A totally different example, of course, would be the people who are full of it and they just won't admit it to themselves. Then I really try hard to sell them on making it conscious. And it's all that, it's all that ancient statement that was allegedly depicted at the gate of the Oracle of Delphi. Gnathi Seauthon, know thyself. Know who you are. If you don't know who you are, if you don't see yourself for who you are, if you don't accept yourself for who you are, then you'll just always be spinning in circles. Like I was, I was always like, why am I drawn and attracted to these black magicians? They are horrible people. I'm not like that. I'm a good person. And then I started seeing my past lives, and that's when it all changed. I was like, oh, well, I am actually quite like that. I've been like that for a long time. Me and them are the same, so of course there's an attraction, you know? Just snap and start seeing yourself as a victim because you're not a victim. I can hear the hellhounds barking to that loudly. So the hounds of hell just want you to know what Orcus said, that nobody becomes chained in the other world other than by their own volition. You are not a victim ever. Lust is the drive of our will, says Sefer Raziel. It is that which gives us direction through desire, absolutely. And that's why I think Lucifer pointed it out to me so strongly, because will is considered the main quality of the magician, and lust is like the will to live, like the drive, the direction through desire. It has definitely been a big recurring theme. I also think it's basically the will to survive. Survival instinct. It's a form of lust.
Kind of a very mystified version of Freud, if you really think about it.
Well, Freud was a product of his own time and the society as it was back then, of his social class. Satan's soldier says, just think about how stupid the average person is, and then realize half of them are even stupider than that.
It's true.
So, you can go from right-hand path to left-hand path or the other way around, but what it boils down to is knowing who you are truly. Like, are you a black magician at heart? Then be one, because that's the only character that you'll be able to play. You will be typecast in that character again and again. Or if it's not who you are and you're just kind of forcing yourself to be some way that you're not, it's not going to work. So if the lust, if the desire is deep, if it's authentic, you can free yourself from any kind of bonds. But if it's what you actually want, then you won't be able to free yourself. And see, Lucifer likes to use. He swears a lot when he talks to me. I don't know why, but like no other spirit talks so profanely to me. And he said to me, look, like on the topic of getting out of pacts and oaths, see, Nora, it's like saying that you don't want dick. You can say that, but it's not true. We both know it's a lie. So you still want me. You haven't had enough. And that's why you can't be released from these bonds. Because you're lying to yourself. And that's the truth, regardless of, which way you go. You can't lie to yourself because the spirits, they see through it. And I have often seen in my practice with clients that sometimes what looks like a curse, it's actually not a curse. It's just the person having a big, fat internal dilemma that they haven't resolved. Like they're lying to themselves in some way. So, the reason why you're failing at something is you don't really want it. You may be telling yourself that you want it, that that's what you want, but if it's not manifesting, regardless of your effort, then the reason why it's not manifesting is that you actually are not in agreement with said intention.
And getting back to the whole right hand path, left hand path thing, that gets back to something that I've keenly believed for a while, and that any binary choice, no matter what it is a control mechanism.
It's an illusion, definitely. It's like people get stuck in these dilemmas like, do I want to be a law abiding citizen or an outlaw? Like, do I want to be a chaste, modest wife, a good husband, or like, do I want to play wild? And it's a binary choice where it seems like you're going to lose either way.
Yeah, that's why I laugh at these people who think, like, Christianity long ago drew this line in the sand and said, all right, if you sit on this side of this line in the sand with me, you're a good person. If you sit on the other side, you're a bad person. And then these people, a lot of left-hand pathers like to say, oh, I don't give no craps about Christian dogma, without realizing that all they're doing is planting their ass on the other side of that line, which validates it. If you really want to piss off the Christians, if that's your intent, smudge that line, get rid of it. Who gives a fuck if what you prefer and how you act?
There's a lot of people who are split Satanists who basically are just out there to, like talk shit about Christianity, which is kind of childish. Like I learn from any tradition, from any concept, and I for sure don't think that hundreds of years of great artists, philosophers, theologians, that they were dumbasses and that I'm smarter than them. That would be a stupid thing to think.
Yeah, it's just that mentality that if I go extremely other direction, that'll fix things. No, it's just going to give you a completely different set of problems. Understanding
that is so true. That is so true. And that should be said about the left-hand path over and over. Like, if you're horny to get into pacts and left-hand path and serving Satan, because you think that it will solve all of your problems. Well, duh. Even mastering practical magic, like, it's entertaining, but it will bring a whole different set of problems to you. It's not a quick fix. We are nearing the glorious ending today. We've touched upon a lot of things. I will be back tomorrow solo for the Moonday Dark Arts with a fairly personal uh, message experience. I'm going to be telling my story and stories of my clients over the years, all dealing with magic wars, enemy work, vengeance, reversals. How does it work? How you do it? What are the necessary setups for that? And you can read an essay on my website. It's pinned to the top at inner-ignition.net so that you know what is the story here that we are going to address. I would also like to point out to everybody who's listening that I have put out there some spiritual services, finally, officially. Uh, I do channeled oracles. No need to ask questions, no need to give any details about you. This is just a spiritual guidance message from my gods, from my ancestral Slavic spirits. They will speak about what they feel is important to speak about. It's very folkloric, mythical imagery. The suggested donation is $65. So if you want to support the show and my creations, if you appreciate what I'm doing, then this is one of the ways how you can give back and get something out of it. And also, I do rituals for hire. There is a preliminary consultation that precedes that, which is $50, and then we will either proceed with ritual work. It's always customized, always specific to your situation. Or in some cases, I have found out that the people, they didn't really need magic from me, so I just told them how they do it themselves. So I'm not in it for the money, but I'm happy to share my gifts with you. Talk to you tomorrow. Thanks for coming. And Frater Chaotos has requested a very specific song with a specific footage here, which leans in nicely to our topics for tomorrow. So, painted black, and let's get ready for some magic warfare.
I see a red door and I want it painted black. No colors anymore, I want them to turn black. I see the girls go by dressed in their summer clothes. I have to turn my head until my darkness goes. I see a line of cars and they are painted black. Flowers and my love both never to come back. I see people turn their heads and quickly look away. Like a newborn baby, it just happens every day. I look inside myself and see my heart is black. I see my red door, I must have it painted black. Maybe then I'll fade away and not have to face the facts. It's not easy facing up when your whole world is black. No more will my green seagull turn a deeper blue. I could not foresee this thing happening to you.